They told us loyalty was simple, that the chain of command was the Emperor's voice made manifest, that if we obeyed, we'd be saved. But orders began to change. Codes shifted by a single digit. Faces wore the wrong expressions. A man could speak to you in the trench, then answer you again from the Vox 10 seconds later. We laughed at first, called it fatigue, paranoia. But then came the night the sky turned green with orbital fire, and every company reported different instructions from the same command seal. Men killed each other for the Emperor that evening, both sides certain they fought for him. Now the banners are burned, and I don't even know if the skin on my hands is my own. Because the Alpha Legion doesn't invade from the outside. It breathes from within, so listen carefully. Because the Hydra speaks in many voices, and one of them might be mine. If you can still hear this transmission, if your faith still flickers in the dark, amplify it. Share this report before the Hydra buries it again. Somewhere out there, another regiment is about to receive the same orders we did. They deserve to know what waits behind a perfect Imperial seal. Subscribe your vigilance, spread the warning. For once a whisper enters the ranks. There is no silence, only the hiss of the Hydra. The mud on Vordrast Naim never dried. Even when the sun broke through the green clouds, it steamed instead of hardening, sweating like the planet was alive. We called it corpse soil because the smell never left your hands. It got into everything, boots, rations, skin. Even prayer couldn't scrub it out. The 112th Cadian had been stationed here for 6 months, supposedly to guard a manufacturing ruin that hadn't produced anything in decades. We didn't question the orders. That was before the static began whispering. At first it was harmless background noise, Vox interference, machine spirits restless in the wet air. But the messages grew clearer. I was on comms duty when the first one broke through, a low, confident voice cutting through the hiss. Directive 79 Omega. Authorization, Lord General Mithrin. Immediate redeployment to Grid Epsilon 4. The phrasing was precise, clipped, official. I'd heard that tone before in briefing halls and recruitment pics. But Mithrin was dead. Everyone knew it. The orbital strike that killed him had burned half a continent into glass. I called for the commissar. Veln appeared from the command bunker like an executioner carved from iron, cloak stiff with rain, bolt pistol heavy on his hip. He listened to the recording twice. The verification sigil glowed green, authentic Imperial encryption. Mithrin's seal, his voice, his command. Machine error, Veln said, but I saw the doubt under his words. That night his tent stayed lit for hours. By morning the order was confirmed across all frequencies. Pull back from the ridge, regroup for a strike against renegade Cadia elements. The designation code matched our own. Every regiment on world received the same directive. No one questioned it aloud, but unease ran through the ranks like current through a live wire. We moved because the Emperor demands obedience, because hesitation smells like heresy, but when the artillery started landing on the positions we'd just vacated, I felt something cold take root behind my ribs. Either command was mad or someone else was giving the orders. 3 days later, I started hearing my own voice. It came over the personal Vox one night, faint but clear. Patrol the perimeter, trooper case. That was my name. The same tone I used with the rookies. I froze in the dark, helmet mic clicking on instinct. Repeat last control, static. Then again. Patrol the perimeter. I looked around, half expecting someone to laugh to admit the prank. Nothing. Just the sound of the wind scraping through ruined ferrocrete. I obeyed anyway. Because that's what soldiers do. We follow orders even when we don't know who's giving them. When I returned, my squad mates were whispering. Private Marn swore he'd seen a man standing outside camp, uniform immaculate, face obscured by rain. When challenged, the figure saluted in perfect cadence and melted into the storm. 2 sentries followed and never came back. The next day, replacements arrived. Same names, same faces, but something in their eyes too focused, too calm. They didn't blink enough. One of them, I swear, mouthed my words before I said them. Commissar Veln initiated loyalty drills, full purification rites. Creed recitation, Emperor's catechism. Random interrogations at dawn. We passed everyone. The newcomers quoted scripture more fluently than priests. They remembered everything. Every trench coordinate, every casualty report. Better than we did. It should have comforted me, but I started watching them too closely. At mess, they'd pause mid-bite, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Sometimes their lips moved, but no sound came out. I stopped sleeping. The rain on the tent canvas began to sound like code. Long taps, short taps, sequences that almost formed words. In the distance, the manufactorum's silhouette flickered with blue light, like lightning trapped inside glass. Feln dismissed it as atmospheric anomaly. The tech priest said it was impossible. Yet every night the glow pulsed in the same rhythm as the whispers on the Vox. A heartbeat you could see. Then came the double. We were cleaning our rifles near the comms pit when Sergeant Carriel walked in. Nothing unusual until another Carriel stepped through the curtain behind him. Same scar, same voice, same mud-stained coat. Both froze. Neither spoke. I saw their knuckles tighten on their laser guns at the same time. For a heartbeat, the air felt wrong, thick, like we'd stepped into a place not meant for us. Feln arrived within seconds, execution order in hand. He shot one without hesitation. The body fell twitching, blood dark as tar. The other Carriel didn't flinch. He saluted and left. No one dared ask which was which. That night I buried the wrong man. I knew it, though I couldn't prove it. His tags felt colder than they should have, the metal slick with something more than water. I didn't pray. I just whispered his name and hoped someone was listening. The next morning I found his voice on the Vox reciting the litany of obedience in perfect time with mine. The campaign continued. We took ground, lost ground, fought ghosts in the rain. Every report contradicted the last. Reinforcements arrived wearing the same unit markings we did. Some claimed they'd been under my command for weeks. One of them saluted and called me captain. I tried to correct him. He frowned as if I were the imposter. I started writing everything down on a data slate, but the entries changed overnight. Words I never wrote appeared between lines. Phrases like Hydra Dominatus and all are one. When I deleted them, they returned, rearranged into prayers. Once I found a line in my own handwriting that read, "You have always served us." The last pure thing left was my voice. Until the night it wasn't. I was on sentry duty when the Vox flared with static again. Trooper case report, it was me. The exact cadence, the breath between syllables, the same weariness. I froze. Who is this? I asked. The answer came immediately. You know who I am? I wanted to tear the headset off, but my hands didn't move. Where are you? I whispered. Everywhere you stand, something shifted behind me. I turned, laser gun raised, but the trench was empty. Only the rain. Only the wire hum. Then a single word bled through the channel, calm and certain. Obey. The Vox died. The next morning, our orders changed again, signed under my name. The rain never stopped, but the colors changed. In the early mornings, the sky went the color of brass like spent casings. By evening, it turned green, a sickly glow that painted every face like it belonged to a stranger. We dug new foxholes on orders I didn't remember giving. The commissar barked for discipline, but his voice had begun to sound like the one in my headset. When he passed me in the trench line, he didn't nod anymore. He stared just a heartbeat too long, as if measuring how well I fit my own skin. Our squad shrank and swelled without notice. One night I counted 9 troopers. By dawn there were 12, all wearing the same mud-slicked armor, same unit patch, same tired eyes. They greeted me by name, recited the Emperor's creed with flawless inflection, even laughed at the same moments during ration jokes. But something in their laughter echoed, like a recording played a fraction out of sync. I started watching for the small tells, who blinked when thunder cracked, who crossed themselves before eating, who bothered to curse the mud. The newcomers were perfect, but perfection became its own imperfection. Marn stopped talking altogether. He'd been the squad's cynic, always muttering about rations and dice games, but now he moved like a shadow, taking orders before they were given. When I tried to ask what was wrong, he only smiled and squeezed my shoulder. His palm was cold through the armor. Later that night I heard him whispering in the dark with someone who wasn't there. He was listing names, mine among them, as if reading from a roster no one else could see. Commissar Velen escalated the loyalty drills. Random identity verifications at night, purity litanies before dawn, Vox recitations under the auspex to root out false echoes. We lined up, reciting the Imperial Catechism, while servitors scanned our biometrics. Every time my heart beat like a drum against my ribs until the green rune flashed, yet the men I doubted passed cleaner than I did. They finished prayers before I started them. They knew words the Munitorum priests hadn't taught. And when Veln demanded they kneel for a bolt round to the skull as proof of faith, they did so without hesitation. He pulled the trigger on one. The body fell and turned to slurry in the mud before our eyes, the armor collapsing inward like empty cloth. Veln didn't speak for the rest of the day. That night I dreamed I was inside the Manufactorum ruin. Endless conveyor lines stretched into darkness, each carrying identical guardsmen down toward a pit that glowed with warp light. I saw myself on one of the belts, mouth open in a silent scream, and another me watching from above, whispering the orders to keep the line moving. When I woke, the smell of promethium lingered in the tent like burnt incense. On my data slate, new text had appeared under my last entry, Hydra Dominatus. The rain outside beat a pattern on the canvas. Long, short, pause, long, long. I counted until it formed words in low Gothic. Obey, obey, obey. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it came through my palms now, a pulse in my blood. My reflection in the canteen's water didn't match my movements exactly. When I blinked, it stared. Orders arrived again at dawn, this time sealed with the personal sigil of Commissar Veln himself. Redeploy to the old fuel tunnels under the Manufactorum, sweep for heretical cells. The coordinates matched a restricted zone he'd forbidden us to enter 2 days earlier. I carried the order to him myself. He scanned the sigil, jaw tightening, then dismissed me with a flick of his fingers. Do as commanded, he said. But the way he avoided my eyes told me he hadn't written it. He was obeying too. We marched at dusk. The tunnel smelled of oil and rot, echoes swallowing our footfalls. Lumen strips flickered, turning the squad's shadows into a marching double file along the walls. Marn walked at my side, humming under his breath, a melody I didn't recognize. Every time I looked at him, he smiled and hummed louder. In the wavering light, his features seemed to stretch, the grin reaching his ears, then snapping back when I blinked. I gripped my laser gun until my knuckles ached. Halfway down the main shaft, we found a Vox altar. It was a crude thing, scrap metal welded into a frame, wires trailing into the rock like roots. A half-burned candle guttered in front of it. The machine spirit inside pulsed with a low blue glow, casting sigils across the floor. Perfect Imperial sigils. Too perfect. Veln ordered it destroyed. Marn stepped forward before the commissar could and placed his hands on the casing. His voice rose, low and confident, speaking authorization codes none of us had heard. The glow shifted to green. For a moment, the entire tunnel pulsed with light like a heartbeat. My breath froze. Everyone else dropped to one knee automatically except me. Marn turned his head slowly, still smiling, the glow crawling across his eyes. "You're late, Case," he said in my voice. "We've been waiting." His words echoed down the shaft, answered by other voices, a chorus repeating from unseen throats. "We've been waiting. We've been waiting." The squad stayed kneeling. Only Veln and I stood, staring at the thing that had worn Marn's face. Veln drew his bolt pistol. His hand shook. "Identify yourself," he hissed. Marn, no, whatever was inside Marn, tilted its head. We already did. The Vox altar pulsed again. The kneeling troopers raised their heads in unison. Their eyes were empty sockets of light. They began to rise. I aimed at Marn, but my laser gun felt wrong, heavy as if someone else held it. My finger wouldn't find the trigger. The chorus grew louder, overlapping my own heartbeat until I couldn't tell which was which. "Hydra Dominatus," they whispered. "Hydra Dominatus." Veln fired first. The bolt round tore Marn's chest apart, but no blood came, only a spray of black fluid that hissed on the rock. The thing collapsed, then shuddered and reformed, still smiling. It took a step forward, and the squad moved with it, rifles lowering as if at drill. I ran. The tunnels blurred. My boots splashed through oil and water, hands sliding on rusted ladders. The whispers followed, rising above the clatter of my escape. Behind me, bolt fire and screams, then nothing but static. My own name hissed from the walls as I fled. Case, 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 each echo a little closer. I surfaced in the rain, gasping. The Manufactorum glowed in the distance like a hive of lightning bugs, its silhouette warping under each pulse. My Vox crackled. "Trooper Case, report." It was my voice again, calm and certain. "Mission success. The Hydra is within." I tore the headset off and threw it into the mud. The green light on its rune kept blinking, even as water filled its casing. When I looked back at the tunnel mouth, shapes were emerging, silhouettes in perfect Cadian armor, marching in step. Their helmets hid their faces. One of them raised a hand in greeting. Even through the rain, I saw its lips move with mine. I didn't wave back. The rain made masks of everyone. A glistening film that turned faces into smeared reflections of something I almost recognized. I backed away from the tunnel mouth until the slope gave way beneath my heels and dumped me into a drainage trench. Cold water swallowed me up to the ribs and knocked the breath out of my chest. I crawled blind through reeds and rusted wire, gulping air and swallowing mud until the manufactorum's black flank loomed between me and the emerging silhouettes. When I risked a look, the squad that wasn't my squad had already fanned out. They moved with parade ground precision, each turn a mirror of the next. Somewhere beyond them, a siren wailed 2 notes and died, as if the wind had cut its throat. I ran for the regimental command dugout because terror leaves you only instinct, and mine wanted walls. People, a room full of noise that could smother the whispers. The trenchworks were a maze of timber slats and knee-high water, glow globes flickering like fatigued stars. A sentry challenged me with the correct code and then forgot to collect mine. His eyes were fixed on the middle distance where lightning walked the ridge. Inside, cogitator banks clicked stale air into the lungs of the place, and maps were pinned with too many colored pins that meant the same thing. Thinning lines. Colonel Ardek looked up as I stumbled in. His face was carved from wax and sweat, a thin mustache trembling over a jaw that never shut properly since Khalistan Ridge. Commissar Veln stood beside him, cloak dripping, one gloved thumb pressed hard against the bridge of his nose as if he could smooth a headache flat. I saluted, failed halfway, and braced myself with both hands on the table. "Report," Ardek said. "We're not alone down there," I managed. "Vox alters, the men. Copies of the men. They move like us. They answer before they're asked. The tunnels are wrong." I heard myself and hated the sound. A child with a ghost story, breathless and unclean. Veln's gaze flicked to the mud drying on my plates, to the reversed buckle on my webbing, to the notch in my cheek plate I'd earned in a drop pod crash that never quite healed. His eye stayed there. "Who gave you the tunnel order?" he asked softly. "You did," I said, and watched the truth hit him like a bolt shell without the mercy of detonation. He reached for his Vox bead and then let his hand fall. Ardek's fingers worried the edge of the map until it frayed. "We've had spurious traffic all night," the colonel muttered. "Counter orders on top of counter orders. A platoon marched west twice in opposite directions." "Sir," I said, and only then realized my hands were shaking. "We have to burn the arrays. Whatever's speaking, it's using our Vox to teach our shadows how to be us." Veln laughed once with no humor. "Burn the arrays and we blind ourselves." "We're already blind," I said. "We're seeing what it wants us to see." A runner burst in with the grace of a thrown brick. "Commissar!" Identity drill at 3-line went bad. 3 troopers failed the oath fill, but their litanies checked out on the servitors, and Private Saren shot the priest when he tried to rerun them. Says the machine was the liar. Ardek swore by saints I had never heard of. Veln's jaw worked. "Quarantine 3-line. Double honor guards on all shrines and Vox racks." He turned to me. "Case you're with me. We'll start at the mast. If there's rot in the metal, we cut it out." I don't know why I nodded. Maybe because I wanted to see the sky from somewhere high before it was taken away. We moved under a curtain of rain that softened the world into charcoal and chalk. Veln set a pace that didn't admit doubts. I followed, counting things to ground myself. 7 steps between lampposts, 2.5 breaths per stride, the 4-stroke heartbeat of the mast's generator as we drew nearer. Halfway, we picked up another soul, a trooper crouched behind a collapsed crate stack, rifle tucked against her shoulder, eyes wide and unblinking in a face stippled with rain freckles. I knew her by silhouette first, Lissa Iyer, runner from 1st Platoon, the one who always beat the thunder to the trench with orders still warm from the colonel's slate. "Sir." She bobbed a twitch of a salute at Veln and then at me, as if uncertain which rank I wore at this hour. "Something's wrong with the mast. We're going to make it right," Veln said. "You'll guide us," her mouth tugged at the corner. "I've been trying to work up the courage to go alone." "Then don't," I said. It came out easier than I felt. The Vox mast grew out of the rock like some saint's iron finger. At its base, an umbilical of cables passed through a shrine door into the guts of the relay chapel. A cog-toothed sigil of the Mechanicus was embossed above the threshold, and someone, some devout someone, had etched a tiny aquila in its corner like a personal prayer. When Velen shouldered the door, incense staggered out as if relieved to escape the scent it had been masking. The lumen strings were alive and sickly. A tech priest lay face down beside the altar. His mechadendrites curled like dead spiders. His augmetics were still, but his vox grill chattered under its breath, words in a language my ears flinched from. I reached to switch him off, and Lissa stopped me with 2 fingers. If he's broadcasting, you cut him and the system screams. Velen crouched, pinched the priest's vox grill between thumb and forefinger, and lifted. The grill separated with the wet sound of tearing skin. Underneath, where there should have been teeth and ritual scars and the soft ruin of a human mouth, there was only smooth metal. It had never been a mouth. I thought of Marn's chest knitting itself back together. I thought of my name whispering from stone. I thought of the runner's voice at the dugout, reporting that a man had killed a priest for lying, and wondered if maybe he had killed the only honest thing we still owned. We climbed. The mast ladder was a spine of slick rungs exposed to the world. Wind clawed at my back, eager to pry me loose and throw me into the manufactorum's light like a moth. The city beyond the lines flashed in pulses as if a god below was breathing through cracked lungs. Lissa led, shoulders narrow under the weight of her last pack, boots sure despite the wet. Velen came last, one hand always free to reach for his pistol, the other closed white around the rung above as if he could hold the mast together by raw will. Halfway, the vox came alive in my ear even though I had thrown the set away. "Trooper Case," it said gently, "mind your grip." I froze, forehead pressed to cold iron. "Do you hear it?" I asked to the wind. "Hear what?" Lissa shouted down. "Nothing." I lied and climbed. At the maintenance gantry, the storm met us like a person. Rain hammered sideways, needled my eyes, turned my tongue metallic. The relay dish loomed like a broken halo, a ring of segmented plates, each etched with catechisms, each humming in a voice I hated. Lissa went to the control cowl and pulled a panel. Inside, the guts were clean and wrong, wires braided in patterns that made my head ache to follow. "I can purge it," she said, "but it'll go loud. Everything that answers this mast will hear." "Let it hear," Velen said. He moved to the gantry's edge, scanning the ladders below. "Make it clean." She began to hum under her breath as she worked, a cracked lullaby that steadied my hands simply by existing. I watched the plates, and in the reflections pooled on their rain-slick surfaces, I saw us as the dish saw us. 3 figures in darkest green armor, eyes like polished coins, vox filters sealing our mouths into perfect lines. I blinked it away. The reflection stayed. They turned their heads when we did, but not at the same time. A heartbeat late, a heartbeat early, a clatter on the ladder. Shadows below us multiplied like a sum done wrong. Boots on rungs, too many. Velen sighted, shot, worked the action, shot again. The muzzle flashes lit faces climbing toward us, and everyone had my eyes. "Hurry," he said without looking back. "Case, if they take the gantry, throw me off this thing." "I'll throw you after I go," I said. He laughed, a small laugh meant for no one. Lissa's hands moved with priestly care. She tore out a braided line, and the dish screamed, not with sound but with pressure. The air turned thick. My teeth juddered. Words flooded out of the metal and over my skin in waves. They were promises and confessions and orders written in my handwriting. "You were always going to do this. The only difference was the name you gave it." I put my palms to the plate and pushed as if I could silence the world by force. A figure stepped through the rain at the far end of the gantry, where no ladder met the steel. The storm seemed to make way for him. Scales of ceramite glimmered darkly under the drenched lumen. A Hydra head sigil cut so shallow into the pauldron it only showed when the lightning reached down to touch it. His helm was smooth and old in the way of relics, a thing worn by men who had forgotten to die. He had no need to raise a weapon. The mask did that for him. "Trooper Case," he said. The voice came through the air and through the metal and through my bones all at once. Friendly. Familiar. Patient as a teacher. "You made it farther than I bet. You always do. You told us to tell you that." Velen leveled his pistol and the giant regarded the barrel like a curiosity. "We were always on your side," the legionary added, and I wanted to say that was the worst lie I'd ever heard. I wanted to say it was almost kind. The way you'd lie to a child to keep him calm while the medici sawed. Instead, I said nothing at all and took a step toward him because stepping away would be giving ground to a story he'd already written for me below. The ladder sang with the weight of men who wore my face. The figure at the end of the gantry stood there too long to be just flesh. Every instinct in me said to fire. Every lesson in obedience said to wait. The muzzle of my rifle drifted to the center of that ancient helm before a single word inside my skull, not through my vox, not through air, said don't. The wind died. All I could hear was my pulse and the steady climb of boots below. Veln's next shot went wild. The bolt vanished into the rain like it had been swallowed whole. Run, he hissed. I turned. The mast shuddered beneath us, a live thing, and the ladder below became a river of armor and mirrored faces. Each one smiled through the storm. Each one looked enough like me to pass in low light. Lissa's fingers flew across the exposed cabling. Another minute, she said. One more and it will burn the circuit clean. You don't have a minute, Velen said and emptied his last 3 bolts into the swarm. The flashes showed what words couldn't. A dozen of me climbing toward me, each with the same scar. Each with the same quiver in the jaw that I felt now. The legionary took a single step closer, the iron beneath his boots barely groaning under his weight. You are one of ours, he said. You just haven't remembered yet. I didn't think. I hit the emergency purge rune. The dish screamed, the light went white, and everything inside the mast turned to glare. The metal tore free, throwing Lissa sideways into the rail. Veln lunged after her, missed, and disappeared into the storm. I fell. When the world came back, it was quiet. The rain gone, the manufactorum below cracked open like an egg-bleeding green light. My arm was twisted under me at the wrong angle. The smell of ozone was thick enough to chew. I rolled onto my back and saw the mast burning itself into the sky. No sign of Veln, no sign of the giant. Only Lissa dragging herself toward me, one leg useless, her eyes bright as glass. We did it, she said. We cut the line. I wanted to believe her. Then the vox clicked in my ear, clear and warm as a voice at confession. Directive 79 Omega, it said. Authorization trooper case, Lissa frowned. What is that? I reached for the vox to rip it free again, but my hands froze halfway. They weren't shaking, they were still. My breath caught. I tried to move my fingers. They didn't answer. The voice came again, softer. You've done well. Stand by for extraction. Lissa crawled closer, shouting my name, her hands on my face, her mouth forming words I couldn't hear. Behind her, figures were walking out of the wreck. Perfect stride. Perfect formation. My formation. She raised her laser gun and fired into them. They didn't fall. They just kept coming until the light from the gun burnt out and she was a shadow against the glow. The last thing I saw was her silhouette sinking into the tide of armor. Then one of them knelt, turned my head toward the sky, and I was looking up at my own face through the rain. When I woke again, there was no sky, just steel overhead and the hum of ventilation fans. The air smelled of antiseptic and machine oil. A medici servitor loomed, tubes feeding into my arm. Its optic lenses clicked once, twice. Patient, trooper case, identity confirmed. Condition, stable, my throat felt raw. Where's the regiment? It answered in the exact cadence of my own voice. Awaiting orders. The dread settled quiet, a cold clarity. I turned my head toward the reflection on the medici unit's polished panel. The face there was clean, new scars sealed over. My eyes were calm. Too calm. Who gave the order? I asked. The servitor didn't pause. You did. Somewhere outside, a drill sergeant barked muster through the loudspeakers. Boots hit the deck in perfect unison. A chant rose, steady and certain, Hydra Dominatus, and beneath that chant a whisper that only I could hear. Welcome back, Case. You finally remembered.